Well, hello, I'm back. I took a little break, actually about a 2-month break from doing videos, just to step back and just think about what we're talking about here, reflect on Geospatial-Next and continue the journey. So the title of this talk today is Making That Giant Leap to Geospatial-Next. And just for context, I felt as though a lot of the focus I've put into the Geospatial-Next conversation has been really around the technology. We've spoken about the startups and how this world's evolving, but it's mostly been a technology conversation. Where I want to change the story a little bit here, and the focus is really to start thinking about the business side of things. So that's a reflection today. That's what we'll reflect on today in this talk. So let's jump in. Before we jump into the details here, let's just consider very quickly what we're talking about when it comes to Geospatial-Next. From a technology perspective, we've had a real focus, particularly in the GIS industry, on two-dimensional maps. We've moved from desktop computing to the web to mobile. So we're really talking about sort of this 2D world that's evolved. We've now entered a world where 3D is becoming ever more important. There's conversations about LiDAR generating 3D from imagery. So there's a real, and things like the metaverse, let's not forget that. So there's a new conversation, there's new technology allowing us to start looking at the world in a digital reality way, or digital twin as some people call it. The other piece of that is 4 dimensions, which the 4th dimension, which is real-time data. So now we've got IoT, we've got devices which are static or moving, reporting back on their location and their state. So again, another huge advance. So we're getting these massive streams of data. We've now got the ability to process and analyze that data using artificial intelligence, machine learning. And again, we're relatively early into that world, but we're seeing this emergence of these automated processes dealing with these huge streams of data. I'll just add one more, since we're not really going to talk about the space economy, but there's a whole lot of money pouring into the space economy. We're setting up commercial satellites now in droves, and we're now beginning to get the ability to get data which was only available to the defense industry. SAR is an example, synthetic aperture radar is one example of that. So again, we're entering this world of change technologically. So if I was going to kind of summarize what Geospatial-Next is, it's solving user problems leveraging advances in geospatial data and technology. That's at the core of what is Geospatial-Next, and that's what we'll be focused on in this conversation and upcoming conversations. So when I think of Geospatial-Next, and again, I'm simplifying it, but a lot of the conversations I've had historically have really focused around established companies in the GIS industry, innovation and innovators. There's a whole world of innovators that are appearing in the startup world, creating all sorts of new and exciting things. And then of course we've got the users, and that could be customers for private companies, that could be customers within an organization who are going to use the technology. So I kind of see these 3 pieces as 3 corners of a triangle. And I'm going to change this picture at the end of this presentation just slightly. So that's the sort of the context of things. So what are some core examples of what I'm talking about here? Well, let's look at established companies. Geospatial-Next really means building innovation internally. So getting to that place of building innovation and getting it to the marketplace or to customers to actually solve problems is one thing that we're focused on in thinking about sort of the world of Geospatial-Next from a business perspective. Here's another one. How do existing companies extend their offering, their value, through partnerships, external innovation, for example? So there's a whole world of startups out there. Again, those that are producing data, those that have got machine learning, those that do some really, really clever things, leveraging geospatial technology and or data to do new things. Bringing that into organizations that are established is a really interesting journey that many have started to explore and are marching down. This is relevant with the 𝐻RA-UC coming up very soon. Platform innovation. I've seen massive advances in platforms of late, and there's 2 examples here. forgive me to the open source community, but these are two Esri examples. So there's a lot of conversation around this 3D system of record. I heard that in Palm Springs. Web scenes are amazing technology. If you've ever played with the Esri web scenes and published data there, the ability to see data in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. And then I think that ArcGIS Velocity is of note. That is a cloud-based real-time system. So I believe that's going to spawn all sorts of innovation. But how do we bring that to users? How do we actually ultimately deliver solutions to users leveraging these advances in the platforms? Again, another Geospatial-Next conversation. I'll pick on one more. I said core examples. There are others I could choose. There's been a lot of conversation around cloud analytics, the capabilities of analytics in the cloud. So we hear a lot of talk about data lakes, where there's tons of data that's being of multidimensional data in one place in the cloud. Of course, we can do analytics against that data. So do analytics close to the data. That doesn't take GIS and those kind of technologies out of the conversation. It just means dealing with the big data, providing the working analytics there, and then pushing that into these systems like GIS is now being looked at and explored as part of the Geospatial-Next conversation. Ultimately, this work is to answer geospatial questions. That's obviously our focus here. So, 4 really core examples of what we're talking about when it comes to this whole world of Geospatial-Next. So let me just change that picture that I showed earlier in the talk. I believe that we need to make that a circle and not a triangle. I think we're all in this together. So I think that those that are established companies are building innovation and working with innovators in startups, for example, and working with customers in this sort of circular way together to actually explore and move down this path to Geospatial-Next. So I believe it's not a them and us conversation. It's us in it all together. Ultimately, the goal is to identify problems and solve those problems. So it's a collective journey. So one more slide. My sense is, and this is based on sort of my history in the geospatial industry, and I've probably mentioned this in past talks, but I've lived in multiple places in the geospatial world. I worked initially as a developer. That was that's how I learned the trade, so to speak. I've worked in marketing, I've worked in sales, and my role now is I've owned a business and been through the challenges of owning your own geospatial business. And now I'm really focused on the Geospatial-Next, the what next conversations. Call it innovation, call it what you will, but how do we move the needle forward? So my sense is, from what I've seen, the mistakes that I've made is getting to Geospatial-Next requires a structured approach. And that's going to be actually the focus of the next few talks I'm going to do. What are the results of taking a very structured approach? Well, it gives focus. And anyone that's read Crossing the Chasm will know what I mean by beachheads. It allows us to get focused, to get beachheads. It's a business first conversation. We can talk until the cows come home about technology. We can talk about data and the price of data, but at the end of the day, it's really a business conversation with technology supporting the business. It's not the other way around. Big word, we use it a lot, but in building collaboration, a collaborative environment is part of having a structured approach. Collaboration is huge. Having the right people, I always say, having the right people in the room at the right time, asking the right questions in a collaborative way is absolutely critical. Alignment, you will never achieve Geospatial-Next and the goals of Geospatial-Next without alignment within the group, within that circular group, the existing businesses, startups and customers. Accountability, that's part of the journey. We don't promise things and don't deliver. We're always accountable, and that's part of a structured approach. And then the last one, which again, I'll probably talk about other things moving forward, but fast experiments are a big deal. I think that if we're going to actually move into a world where there's an adoption of this new technology, we have to do fast experiments to make sure that we've identified and validated the problem, and we have a solution which actually solves that problem. And that's an iterative process, and essentially it can often be seen as a fast experiment. So I won't go any further. I've got a lot more on this stuff. I've spent quite some time thinking through this, building out structured approaches to this, which I'll share moving forward. But I'm definitely pivoting slightly in these conversations to really take a more business-centric approach to this, and to think how we can more effectively together bring new solutions to problems leveraging advances in geospatial technology and data. So thanks for watching today. Thanks for joining us on the Geospatial-Next channel. We're focused here on understanding the future of geospatial. That's both how we get to mainstream adoption of the technology and data, and how we start using blockchain and crypto to move things forward. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.